All right, to linearize the second graph, you're going to start by graphing the data, which I've done for you here. And then the next thing that you need to do is identify the shape of the curve. And to me, it looks like that, which is a parabola. So you'll reference your cheat sheet. And looking at your cheat sheet again, you're going to look for the one that looks like a parabola, which is going to be this one. So to linearize it, we're going to graph y versus x squared. So I come back over here, and I'm going to create a new column of data, just like I did before. And I'm going to need to do x squared. So we already did time. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a time squared. And then my units also have to get squared. So it'll be my x squared column where it's time squared and the units are second squared. And so I'm going to go through all of this data now and square it all. So now in my new graph, I'm going to be graphing time squared versus position versus time squared. And one spot that students make a lot of mistakes when they go on to the next step after this is because they did not label their graph. So I'm going to label my graph. The y-axis stayed the same. It's still position in meters. And my x-axis is time squared because I'm about to graph the numbers that I just squared for time. So it's time squared. And then whatever happens to the variable also happens to the unit. So I need to make sure that my units are squared as well. And now I just need to graph it. And one of the things that students often ask me is, how do I know what numbers to count by? And when I'm graphing it, I'm looking at my biggest numbers being 25 and 75. I make that my biggest number on the graph, and then I decide what I want to chunk it by. I could chunk it by 5s or 1s or whatever. I chose 5s on the horizontal axis and 25 on the vertical axis just because I thought that would be easy. But you can do it with whatever you want. Just make sure that your biggest number does fit on the graph. And now that I have this, I look at it, it's basically a straight line, which is perfect. And now I just need to find the equation for my graph. So to find the equation for this, or my mathematical expression, which means equation, I need to think about y equals mx plus b. Instead of y, I'm going to put my y variable. My y variable in this case is position. So I'm going to write position. And my slope is my rise over my run. And so I need to figure out what that is. Well, it starts basically at 0 and goes up to 75. So my rise is going to be 75. My run is how far it goes over. That is 25 because it starts at 0 and goes to 25. Well, 75 divided by 25 is 3. So I can make that a 3. Now, every number needs units. And so I ask myself, well, this is 75 watts. Well, this is 75 meters. And going sideways, this is 25 seconds squared because those are the units here and there. And so when I did rise over run to get my number for my slope, I also do rise over run to get my units for my slope. So that would be meters over seconds squared. Now, do not forget that you have not done x yet. This whole thing here, it's been the slope. Now you need to multiply times your horizontal variable. And my horizontal variable in this case is time squared. And if you want to put t squared, that's fine. And then we need to add to it our y-intercept. In this case, our y-intercept is 0 because it's going right through the origin. But I'm going to put that there. And then if it was a number, I would need units. So in this case, my units for my y-intercept would be meters. So there are 6 things that you need to be looking for. So check your work. You need the right y variable, and you're not using y, you're using what is on the y-axis for that variable. You need a number for the slope. You need units for your slope. You need your x variable, and make sure that if you change what you were graphing, you have to make sure that that matches. And then you have your y-intercept and units for your y-intercept. So that's 6 things. Make sure you've got all of them in your equation. And if you have questions, let me know.